and welcome to another episode of the MLS UK show Stoppage Time. I'm Henry Hewitt, and as always, I'm joined by
Elliot Holman.
So, Elliot, we're back. We've had a few weeks off. We had a few weeks off in the summer because Bryony gave birth. We've now had a few weeks off at the end of the season because Poppy's given birth, but we are back very tired, but we're back just in time for the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw, congratulations, by the way. Obviously, I've already said that, but just in front of everyone else, congratulations. I saw a picture of Poppy and she had a gown on. I wonder if we could do a quick kit review.
As you well know, I think anyone post-birth, or pre-birth actually, is probably not in the mood to have any joking like that. But to be fair to her, she does look great. I will give her that. I know I'm meant to say that as a husband, but considering she's just given birth and she's up most of her nights, whereas I managed to get a bit more sleep than her, she looks great. So we'll give her that, but she is getting ready. She is back. We also had a tweet actually asking whether my son Arthur will be joining in on the kit reviews come March. I don't know whether his will be a rating that he produces in his pants because he won't be able to talk, but maybe some of the kits will look like, because as you know, they've lots of different shades of yellow and green. So yeah,
yes, yeah. Shout out to Portland.
Yes, exactly. Right. Well, of course, it was decision day this weekend, and it didn't disappoint. The last few places of the playoffs were up for grabs, and it went right down to the wire, especially in the East. And let's start there, because New York Red Bulls, 14 years in a row, have made the playoffs. They have made the wild card game in the MLS, Audi MLS playoffs, as we should call it. Do you think it was well deserved in the end? They've snuck over the line. We know how to do it.
Yeah, so I was DJing a wedding on Saturday night, which was a bit annoying with the kickoffs being a bit earlier. And as I pulled on the drive, I had a quick check of all the scores, and I was like, "Oh, Red Bulls are not going to do it." Like, it was like right at the end of the game, it was like 85 minutes. By the time I'd got in bed, checked my phone again, I was like, "No way, penalty! They're surely not." So what a way to do it! And they're first up playing Charlotte. So good luck to them. 14 years in a row, but no MLS Cup.
Not yet, anyway. I'll be honest, I don't think it'll happen this time. I think it'll be a bit too much for them. But they are heading into the playoffs in good form. They've won for the last 3. They've won the last 2 away games, including, obviously, the Nashville win and a win at Cincy. So they are in form. But Charlotte got over the line themselves by beating Leo Messi's Inter Miami 1-0. I mean, I know, obviously, Charlotte are the away team, and if they get through, they're only going to be playing one home game in the in the first round of the playoffs, and then away from there. But in that one game they could potentially play at home, there'll be a hell of an atmosphere. So that maybe could sway things slightly in their direction if they get to that point, maybe.
Yeah, you have to feel like the odds are stacked up against these teams in the wild card spots, but maybe rightly so. I don't mean that as anything against the teams involved specifically. I just think I remember the day really clearly. I remember the day they unveiled this playoff system, the new system, and more spots available, but really, really difficult for those teams. So you come through away against New York, and then you've got a tough game after tough game. It's going to be really difficult for those sides to make much progress, I think.
Yeah, well, Charlotte have dropped the most points from winning positions in the regular season, which tells me that as great as Charlotte fans are, and in that one potential home game, it might get them over the line. I think that is the worrying stat for me, and I do think that Charlotte potentially we won't see much of them in the playoffs. I tell you what, before we break down each conference and we look ahead to the playoffs, let's just have a look at the other wildcard game that will be happening. And San Jose will be traveling to Sporting KC. I almost forgot there in my tired state. But Sporting KC, a great run they're on, and a few people have got them as wildcards. Ironically, if they win the wildcard game, to go further than what you would anticipate for a wildcard team. Would you agree with that?
I mean, looking at their overall season, no. However, obviously, recent form has been much better. We had a conversation where we believed midway through the season that Peter Vermees should be gone because they just were not good enough. Last 5 at home, only lost 1 game, couple of wins away in the last 5 as well. It's certainly turned around. If they'd have had a bit of a better season at the beginning, they wouldn't have to be going through this. The odds would be a lot more stacked in their favor. Personally, I don't think they go deep this year.
No, well, it is tough, as we just mentioned, for the wildcard teams. I think out of all of them, out of the 4, I'd probably go with SKC myself to have that run into the latter stages. If one were, you always tend to get a team that has finished sort of 6th or 7th that does quite well, never goes on and wins it. But for me, it could be SKC. They'll be facing San Jose, who have got over the line. Of course, it's been a bit of a change the last few years for San Jose, and I think it's a real watershed moment. And you think if you look at them compared to Houston, both similar sort of sides in recent seasons. Houston have obviously pushed on. Ben Olsen has done great with them. San Jose is still kind of in the same position, but getting over the line, getting into the playoffs will be a massive boost for them, won't it?
Yeah, I think they struggle. Obviously, somebody has to win out of those two. It's probably going to be SKC. San Jose have only won 2 games away from home all season. One of those was against Vancouver, I believe, 1-0 victory. I'm saying all this stuff, pretending it's legit. I think that's right. So I think 2 wins from 17 on the road, not fantastic. Doesn't mean that they're going to be tearing up many trees in the playoffs, but they made it. It's positive. It's something to build on. A few years ago, San Jose were a long way off that. So certainly progress.
Yeah, you're right. And these wildcard games, when, as you said before, when they announced the playoff format, I was a bit like, the team in 9th getting into the playoffs, does that make sense? But I think having seen Decision Day, and that's where the drama was for those teams to get into it, I'm kind of on board. I'm not quite there with the best of 3 round 1 games just yet in the MLS playoffs, but I'm sure, if you ask me again in a month's time when we've come through them all and we've seen all the drama that's there, I'm sure the madness will have been explained and we'll get on board of it. I'm sure. Probably not, but I'm sure. Right, let's just kind of round off Decision Day with a few of the other matches, and then we'll move on to the playoffs and talk about the teams, including Orlando, that have actually got a shout of winning it this time, which is, again, very weird for me to say. Go on, what you said you were working, you then checked the scores. What kind of games were you, barring the Orlando game, what games did you have your eye on Decision Day?
I was interested in Montreal, to be honest. Montreal at Columbus, they've had a bizarre season. Really, really strange season. So didn't play any home games at the start, really struggled to get points on the board. And I knew Columbus, not that they had loads to play for, but Columbus always score goals at home, always looking to get on the front foot, difficult team to go and beat, and really difficult for Montreal to go and get a result. So certainly Columbus-Montreal was one I was keeping my eye on, as well as Orlando, because I saw the 11 completely rotated and thought, okay, I get it. Second is nailed on, and we're resting players ahead of the playoffs. But watching Toronto is just so painful. It's so bad. It's incredible. It's actually incredible how awful they are. And the players, Insigne and Bernardeschi, Michael Bradley, there's been a place on this podcast reserved for a hatred of Michael Bradley for a long time. But watch the goals back. What are you doing? It's unbelievable. I know it's all, thank you, Michael. Thanks for your service. But at least turn up, mate. It was bizarre to watch. Really bizarre. I don't know what's gone on in Toronto. I really don't.
No, yeah, well, they've brought in a new head coach, haven't they? So he's going to have a full close season to work with them. And yeah, there needs to be a massive change there. There needs to be something. I know it's gone a bit bitter with what has happened over the course of the last 12 months in particular, but it needs a recharge because Toronto have got the players and it's just been awful. It has really been awful this season. For them to finish bottom of the conference is really poor, and I'm sure their fans are very well. They expressed it a few weeks ago with Insignia. They are upset, and that is a club that should be doing far better than what it is. But I mean, credit to Orlando, credit to Maguire who scored a great goal. So yeah, it's it's looking good for Orlando, but we'll talk about that a little later on. One of the games that had me intrigued by it is Portland v Houston. Houston have gone and ruined the team's playoff hopes on decision day yet again, having done it to LA Galaxy in previous years. Houston have obviously done very well. They've got themselves a home game in that first round of the playoffs. Portland, though, they were there and they've got beaten the last two games heavily, and it's ruined their season. But on the whole with Portland, do you really think they deserve a playoff spot? Because I think they've been hit and miss, and again, another team that you expect much better from.
Yeah, I mean, won half their home games, but won about 10% of away games. And that's not, if you're only going to win half your home games, the away percentage needs to be much, much stronger. Also, goals conceded away from home, 36. So it's minus 19 away from home. They did not travel well this year. And it's just a bit bizarre, I think, for us to see Portland in that kind of situation, because bar the odd year, we've never really seen them struggle. We've seen them get to MLS Cup a couple of times as well. Really, really, really strange one.
Yeah, it is. And another team who they need a change. It's got to the point where it's gone a bit stale and they need a refresh. That fan base is Providence Park, great stadiums. That stadium and that fan base should be in MLS Cup Playoffs. They should be at the latter stages of it. They light up. When it's full, like Toronto. When the stadium's full, it looks great, and that's what we want. We're trying to sell this product to the world. We want stadiums like that. We want fan bases and teams like that in the playoffs, and Portland fans will be very disappointed that they've missed out on the final game, because Houston are a good team. Of course, it was never going to be an easy match, but when you look at that result, and especially some of Houston's goals, the defense was a mess for Portland. It's very disappointing. It was in their hands and they let it slip. Right, I tell you what, let's now look forward to the Audi MLS Cup Playoffs then for 2023. Let's start in the East. Of course, we've mentioned that the wild card game, of course, is New York Red Bulls versus Charlotte. I tell you what, we'll do a little prediction for that one. Are you going Red Bulls to win?
I don't think they will.
Wow.
I don't think they will.
Okay.
2-1 Charlotte.
2-1 Charlotte. Okay. I think Red Bulls will go through. I think they'll win 2-1, actually. It'd be a great result for Charlotte if that happens. And then, so the winner of that will go on and play Cincy. Obviously, Cincy Supporters Shield winners, they finish top of the East, so they get the pleasure of playing who comes out of that wildcard game. Now, we've seen it plenty of times before. Actually, LAFC last year were the only side in a long time to have won the Supporters Shield and then MLS Cup. Can Cincy carry that on, or do you see them struggling in the playoffs?
I don't see them struggling in the playoffs. Cincinnati have been unbelievable. I know the last episode we did, it was the whole thing about how Orlando had been the only team to beat them at home. I genuinely, that's still true, right? That's gone the whole way through the season. I don't think they've lost again.
Red Bulls, of course, a few weeks ago.
Red Bulls, yeah. Supporter Shield already wrapped up though, so they don't really care. So really, really strong at home, Cincinnati. I really don't see many teams giving them a problem. I think they can turn it on. They know how to win games in different ways. Don't always score hatfuls of goals. They just keep it tight. I think Cincy are a real pick, as are Orlando and Columbus in the East, to be fair.
Yeah, you look at you look at quite a few of those teams. I would say the East is probably stronger this year. I would maybe say that's my prediction, is that the winner will come from the East, and that's not just because the Supporters Shield champions come from the East. But if you look at Cincy, you look at Acosta, and he's got, I think, 17 goals, 13 assists, so 30 goal contributions, which has put him right in line for MVP. And, when he's in form, the team clicks, and, he's a massive part of that. And I think them being at home all the way through, again, I mentioned Portland, I mentioned Toronto, you look at Cincy's crowd and Cincy Stadium, when that's full, it looks strong. And I think that can get them at least to the latter stages, if not MLS Cup. So they'll have a tough time of it, because there's some strong teams that will have to come to Cincy if they're going to win MLS Cup. And you've mentioned two of them there, Orlando and Columbus. Of course, the Columbus game would be a derby, so that is anyone's. Let's just leave Orlando just for a tiny bit longer. Let's just have a look at Columbus, because, as you said before, they've got such a strong home record. Of course, they then face Atlanta at home in the first round of the playoffs, which I'm already giving them 2 wins in that one, so they will go through. But Columbus this year have come back from an iffy few years. Of course, Cucho has scored his fair share of goals as well, and they mean business, don't they?
Do you know, obviously we were just talking about Cincinnati at home. If Cincinnati have lost 2 at home, that means Columbus's home record is even better than theirs. And so they, like I said, they go in real favourites. And do they score a lot of goals? Columbus games and goals, and Atlanta as well. This is going to be an absolute ding-dong battle. That's the pick for me. Columbus and Atlanta, the goals. I can't wait to see what happens there. I really can't. Atlanta can beat anyone on their day. We all know that. Even this season, they've had some fantastic results. I think this is going to be fantastic.
I hope so, and I hope Atlanta take it to that last game. I worry about Atlanta's away form going to Columbus, so that's why I'm giving Columbus the 2 wins, and hopefully Atlanta can win at home. But I agree with you. I think when you look at the East matches, I mean, Philadelphia, New England Revolution, we've not mentioned them. They played each other on decision day, and any Revs won that game. So there's that could be. Because Philadelphia got to MLS Cup last year, any Revs won Supporters Shield last year. Obviously, none of them then ended up winning. They didn't. Sorry, any Revs won Supporters Shield a few years ago, but none of them have then won MLS Cup. So, I think both teams were wanting to rectify that, and I think that could be an underrated game. I think obviously we'll talk about Orlando and then playing Nashville, and it's Mukhtar up against Orlando. Called the Columbus best home record versus Atlanta. Maybe Philadelphia, New England Revolution is being forgotten about a little bit, but I think that'll be an interesting battle. So let's talk about Orlando then. A much better season this year. When we were speaking last year, you was like, it needs a refresh. The head coach needs to go. You kind of have had that refresh without the head coach leaving, so you must be happy.
Yeah, and looking back at the start of the season, we were still having that conversation because Orlando started the season terribly. They were winning more away than they were at home. They couldn't buy a win at Exploria Stadium. And you have to feel, because it's finished fairly close, you have to feel if they'd have just got a couple of wins at the start of the season, which eluded them, what could they have achieved this year? It would have been really, really interesting. I think with my sensible head on, Orlando have got the capability of really messing this up. But I think if I take my Orlando shirt off and I stand here doing an MLS UK show podcast, it would be absolutely mad to say I don't think that they can go the whole way. I think that Orlando team can absolutely go the whole way, and it scares the hell out of me. You know what it's like. You never come on here and are confident because it's always going to blow up in your face. But it would just be ridiculous to say that they can't do it, because they can. They absolutely can. And 6 years into this podcast, I'm finally saying it. I can't believe it. And then putting the shirt back on, there's absolutely no way it's going to happen. So they'll find a way to mess it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've obviously got a striker in form, so that helps as well, always going into the playoffs. But yeah, this is, for me, being there by your side. Obviously, I support Atlanta, but seeing this and in seasons you've started the season thinking we're going to do very well, and then 2-3 months in, you've gone, we're rubbish. And I've been there silently judging, well, not silently judging, quite loudly judging it with my Atlanta shirt on. But, you look at Orlando's form, you've won the last 4. The worry for me is the home form. I think because you are, 7th in home form within the East, which is, for a team that's finished second, is unbelievable, really. And as a result of you finish second, ironically, you will now play most of your games at home. So that worries me a little bit about Orlando. You could maybe have lost the last few and finished a bit further down and, and got into playing away most of the games. But I think Orlando fans and, of course, the Wall will be excited, will be up for those playoff games. And I think, as we've seen before, if Orlando can get a bit of a run going, maybe get a few late wins as well, I think that's where you can really see a snowball effect happen, because I think that's, at this stage, that's what we're looking for, isn't it? Because, in recent years, we've seen LAFC will win it, or Atlanta will win it, or whoever. I don't necessarily, I know Cincy have a great season, but I don't necessarily see one team that you think they'll win it. It's up for grabs, and that's what's exciting about this. And Orlando, you have as big a chance as any.
Yeah, I agreed. And there's not been one particular standout player for Orlando. You mentioned Mukhtar for Nashville. I think the positive for Orlando is all over the field. They're really, really strong. If they don't come through the games against Nashville and progress to the next round, then it's an absolute travesty.
Well, there we go.
Hello to everyone watching this clip in a few weeks' time.
Right, so let's go to the West then. Of course, we've already said that the wildcard game is SKC versus San Jose. A quick prediction for that one. Who's going through?
SKC for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think home form at this stage is going to be big, and home advantage is going to be big. SKC got through with a good win against Minnesota, and for me, the big thing about that is that game is that they've got Johnny Russell. He's a guy that when they need him, he'll grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and he will get them through. He's done it for years, and I think if they need him in that San Jose game just to get them over the line, I think he could be a big difference. So. Yes, I would agree. SKC to go through. And if they do go through, they will then travel to, what a game this would be. St. Louis versus SKC in the playoffs. It'd be St. Louis's first playoff game, of course, their inaugural season, which couldn't have gone much better. So St. Louis, we've not spoke about them yet, but, it's tough to call, isn't it? Because they've got the naivety in the playoffs, I guess. They didn't have much MLS experience coming into I don't think the squad has that much MLS experience, but maybe that's a good thing as well. And they will play all their matches at home until MLS Cup in case they play Cincy.
We thought they didn't stand a chance, and there's absolutely no way I'm going to stand here now and say that they're naive and they don't have experience, so they're not going to go far in the playoffs, because have I not learned my lesson? They've been fantastic this year. Really, really fantastic. Fair amount of wins, not just at home, but away as well. They've managed to get the job done. They've had some fantastic results against some really good teams with rosters, in my opinion, on paper, much stronger than theirs. There's no way without, with the team spirit that they've got, with the backing they've got, there's no way you can write them off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the home advantage as well is massive, because that stadium is full. It's excited. It will be a real cauldron of atmosphere, especially if they play Sporting KC. They'll be really up for it. And I think, even when San Jose fans, we're not totally dismissing you here. This is just hypothetical. But even if they play Sporting KC and then they have that away game, they showed a month ago in the league, they will take fans to that game. So it will be a bit of an equalizer itself. So St. Louis are real, they're really in there and they're really up there. I think it's going to be really intriguing to see how they do. I really hope that they don't just fall at the first hurdle. I think I would like to see them go quite far in it. Whether they can win MLS Cup at this stage, I don't know. I do think that sort of playoff naivety could be there with them, especially when it goes back to being, one-off sort of matches. But right now, they're a great great option to win MLS Cup, and I think a few people will be having them as their picks, definitely to get to MLS Cup. So the next game is Seattle versus Dallas. Seattle, it's nice to have them back in the playoffs, isn't it? After a year hiatus, what do you rate their chances?
I remember watching them the first game of the season, and they were fantastic. They looked really good going forward, scored loads of goals. And then every time I've watched them since, because you can't, with the schedule, you can't watch every team at the same time. Every time I've seen them, they've been poor. So, and that could just be complete chance. But I think Seattle Dallas is a really tough one to call. If I'm being honest with you, Seattle 7th, Dallas right down in 14th. But Dallas, away from home have not been awful. They're a difficult team to beat. So this is wide open. Obviously, in that stadium, Seattle, with their experience and their roster, they should get the job done. But I think if it was 2 years ago, you'd be like, yes, Seattle. Whereas now, not been so strong this season.
Yeah, I would agree with with what you said there about that. It could really be, it's a tough one to call, because I think if you flip it around, if you got Dallas at home twice, I put Dallas as favourites, which tells me that they're very, Dallas have this incredible knack of just getting the job done when they need to. Okay, you can look and say, oh, well, they finished 7th, but they went to LA Galaxy, they won 4-1, they got the job done. And I think they have that habit of that. And, I think it would not surprise me if this goes to the last game and it's at 1-1. It really wouldn't. So, this is going to be an interesting match. I think Dallas, I think Seattle will go through personally. I think they'll win the 2 home games. And, they are unbeaten in 9. So they have got a bit of form going into it. But yeah, for me, for once, considering like I said, we've been doing this for 6 years, Seattle normally in the playoffs, you look and go, one of the favourites. I don't have them as one of the favourites this time, which is a bit weird, but they have got the head coach, they've got the experience there, whereas I look at St. Louis and think maybe that could be an issue. That could help Seattle. So I guess we'll wait and see on that one. LAFC versus Vancouver. LAFC's form has dipped, but surely you'd have LAFC as favourites, right?
Yeah, again, they've lost 4 games at home, and I think I've watched all of them. And so in my head, they're just terrible, and obviously they aren't. But Vancouver, how nice is this? Vancouver, we're going to talk up Vancouver a little bit, going into the playoffs on the MLS UK show. Has it ever happened before? Well, I don't think so. I remember Galaxy missing out a few years ago over Vancouver, down to a point or a goal or something ridiculous. Vancouver, I think it's a shame they're away, because I think LA probably get the job done. But fair play to Vancouver. They've had a good season, much better than the average season we've seen them have on the 6 years doing this podcast. They've racked up quite a few L's away from home, which is a shame. And I think LA, really tough place to go.
Yeah, I think that first game is important. If Vancouver can stay in the game, and even if they lose, it'd be a close game, I think that'll give them confidence. If LA win the first game 4-0, I think even though obviously it's not done on aggregate, it's done on who wins the games, and we need to remember that there was penalties at the end of the game, so there will be a winner. I think if LAFC comfortably win that first game, I think it's done for the series. But Vancouver did get a draw against them this last weekend on decision day. They've got White, who's playing well. They've got White Gold. They're both playing well.
Gold 11, I think 11 assists, 12 goals. Incredible season from a UK player.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out to Ryan Gold. And that's it. It's like Johnny Russell. You want to see the UK players get to the latter stages of playoffs, especially players like that who aren't on the, when you look at the likes of, we've had Rooney's and Lampards and whoever, Bale, I know he's obviously UK last year. Yeah, those are big names, but it's nice for the sort of the players that are kind of keep MLS going, if you will. They're the players who aren't necessarily the bigger names. It's nice if they get to the latter stages. Right, let's move on to the last game in the West in the playoffs. And this is a fascinating one. Houston versus RSL. You've got the team with the best home record in the West versus the team with the best away record. So who knows what's going to happen when RSL are at home. But for the other two games, this could be a real fascinating outcome, because me personally, I'd put Houston as favourites, but it would not surprise me if RSL went to Houston in that first game and won.
Yeah, RSL, one of the best teams playing away. So this makes it a really, really interesting battle. I remember at the start of the season, Houston, apart from Cincinnati, I think they went the longest without dropping a point at home. Maybe Cincinnati drew and Houston were actually ahead of them there at one point. So their home form, good. RSL, though, this makes it really, really interesting. They've been good on the road.
Yeah, they have. I mean, Houston, the thing with RSL is, as we've seen, they've been in the playoffs quite a few times the last few years. A few years ago, they famously went on that run that got them to the conference final, whereas Houston have not been in that place. I mean, their season this year, including winning US Open Cup, has been fantastic. Ben Olsen has really changed things there. It's going to be interesting with Houston, because I think they are a better team when they're up against it, when they're not the favourites. We saw that in US Open Cup. They went and beat Miami. And I think this game, if they can get over this game against RSL, I think no matter who you put them against, even though they've had a great season, whoever you put them against, even if they're at home, I think they will see themselves as being the underdogs. So I think if they get through this RSL game, which, I mean, for me, it's quite an even game. So it's not like they're underdogs or favourites in this one. But if they get through this, and then they've got to play, some of the other teams in the playoffs, even the likes of, say, it was SKC or, like a team that's coming through wildcards, if they can get through it, I think for the majority of the games remaining, they will be seen as underdogs, and I think that'll suit them.
Something I've just noticed as well, with it being over 3 games, RSL have to play 2 away games at Houston, right?
Yeah.
On average, they've won 50% of their away games. So statistically, they're going to win one of those, which makes it really, really interesting.
Yeah, RSL's away form has been great. And this is the thing, is that RSL, just because they snuck in, means they will have to they'll have to be away for the playoffs, pretty much all the games. You then look at Orlando, whose away form has been brilliant. Unfortunately for you, they will have to play most of their games at home. So RSL have done it the right way. And if it works, then credit to them. But those are the games. Those are the playoff games. It all starts on Thursday night. Or I think Thursday morning or Thursday night, whatever it is, in the UK.
Wednesday night, Thursday morning.
Wednesday night, all days blur into one, and you've got a newborn, as I'm sure you can appreciate. So those are the playoff matches. We're going to do episodes throughout the playoffs, so we'll be updating things and talking about things. But right now, as we go into the playoffs, Elliot, go on, give me a prediction. MLS Cup champions.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard this year. Yeah. We don't normally mind chucking a prediction out there. This is hard. Orlando.
Oh, he's done it. He's done it. And then the next time we do a podcast, he will be regretting that decision. I mean, I can't say Orlando are going to win MLS Cup. I'm sorry. I really can't. So I'm going to go St. Louis Columbus final, and Columbus win.
I agree. I just think it's the only time where I've genuinely thought, Orlando got a chance. But the East is so much stronger than the West this year. So much stronger. The idea that Seattle didn't even win half their home games and they're right up there, I think it's crazy. I think the East is really strong. I think the winner comes from the East, and it could definitely be Columbus.
Let us know who are your favourites to win MLS Cup. Tell us who you think will win, who will in the playoffs, who will get furthest. Is there any teams that we maybe haven't talked about much who can go and do it? Of course, on social media, we are at MLS UK Show. That's across X, Threads. Since we've gone, it's all changed. Instagram as well. TikTok, we're on there. So, get in touch with us. Right, before we go, just a quick note. We've not had a chance to discuss this, but Wayne Rooney has left DC. Of course, DC didn't make the playoffs in the end, all the wildcard matches. Right time for him to leave. He's already got another job in England.
Yeah, I think probably had it lined up anyway. Did his time in DC. Didn't pull up any trees. I really want him to be successful, and I like DC, but it was all very average, wasn't it? To be fair. But as a tip, watch the Colleen Rooney documentary because it's fantastic.
Oh right, okay. That is on our watch list actually.
Really good.
The Wagatha Christie one.
Yeah.
Wagatha Christie. So I agree with what you said, Wayne Rooney. I mean, it was never going to be a long-term plan, was it? Him in charge of DC. He was always going to come back to England at some point. He's done well to get a job with Birmingham, who were doing well in the Championship. I'll be honest, I'm not quite there with Wayne Rooney as a head coach. I do want him to be successful. I think credit to him for going and doing something different. He's been to the Championship and then over to MLS. He could have just eventually got a Premier League job, but he's not. But I think I'm not quite there with it. DC, I hope they get that sorted. They've got a great stadium. They've got a great fan base. I hope they now can bring someone in who's going to re-enlight them, sort the squad out, and get them going again. But it wasn't to be for Wayne Rooney in the end. And we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see who DC get. That's a story for another day. I'm sure after we've discussed the playoffs, we'll move on to DC. But
Michael
for now,
Bradley.
Let's move on. Let's end the show. Big shout out to our sponsor, soccer90.com. Remember, you can go on there. You can get any of the MLS gear. You can get foreign shirts, international teams. You can get Premier League. You can get European teams as well. And when the new shirt jerseys are released in the close season, they will be on soccer90.com as well. If you want to get a discount, you can do 20% off courtesy of ourselves. Just type in MLS UK in the discount code to take advantage of that. That's it from us. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to us, click the notification bell as well. It really helps. We've got over 1,300 subscribers right now, which we hit 1,000 during this season. So it's mad that we're now on 1,300. So we really do appreciate it. And if you are listening on your podcast provider, please leave us a rating. Please subscribe. But if you are going to leave a rating, Elliot, there's one rule and one rule only.
LA Galaxy style, 5 stars only.
And because they didn't make the playoffs, that stands for another season. And it'll probably stand for quite a few seasons, actually. Thanks very much for getting involved. Remember, at MLS UK Show on the socials, chat to us throughout the playoffs. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us if any teams are surprising you or if your predictions have changed from the start to the end. But for now, I've been Henry Hewitt.
And I've been Elliot Holman. Enjoy the playoffs.
See ya.